Welcome inside episode 579 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. And throughout this week, we're going to project the RFA contracts for Mathieu Joseph, Alex Formenton, and Eric Brancher. But today, we're starting with the newcomer, Mathieu Joseph.
And Ross, we continue our prospect profile countdown, and we're getting into the teens today, including an Austrian prospect.
Oh, all that coming up, plus the Senators looking to add to their front office. We'll tell you who said that and who could be a good candidate. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline.net. More props, odds, and lines than ever before. Visit BetOnline.net, where the game starts. And now the show starts. This is the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.
Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Senators your first listen on this Monday, June 13th. We are free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube, where the best way you can help the show grow is to like the video by clicking the thumbs up below. Subscribe to the Locked On Senators YouTube channel. We've had a great push of subscribers. We'll tell you a little contest we're doing later on in the show. And leave a comment below. The comment we want to know today is who would be the best fit to join the Senators front office. Pilsy, Elliot Friedman, in intermission of the last playoff game, said they're looking to add. Stop me if you've heard this before.
I mean, they need to add, so that's great that we're hearing that throughout reporter circles, but it still saddens me, Ross, that Jason Spezza chose to go with the Toronto Maple Leafs for his front office job after retiring. I really thought and hoped that he would come to Ottawa. I think it would have made so much sense. You could tell, like, even years ago, Ross, everybody had Jason Spezza pegged as a front office guy, assistant general manager. It just makes so much sense. He thinks the game. He's able to, give a perspective of, hey, I just recently retired. I know what's going on in these locker rooms. I understand the playing field and what's happening. So that sucks that he will not be coming to Ottawa. Hopefully he doesn't help the Leafs too much and they continue their ways.
39th birthday for Jason Spezza. We've already waxed poetically about his time in Ottawa a couple weeks ago when he retired. That was the same episode we had Jonas Sogard on the show, yes. Mad's younger brother, or older brother. So if you missed that, go check it out. But of course, Spezza would have been a great candidate for a front office role. We got a lot of replies on Twitter at Sens Central asking for Cheryl Pounder, which would have come on the heels, or which would come, because of course there is no announcement. It could still be possible. We'd be the losers in that situation for one reason, though. Her analysis is unbelievable. I want her on the intermissions for as long as possible.
And on her podcast.
Selfishly, of course. Yeah, she'll be back. Friend of the show. Absolutely. Yep. We'd be so thrilled for her if she got that type of gig. The same one, I think, you would give her what Marie-Philippe Poulin got in Montreal. Player development role, just kind of an extra voice in the room. Very innovative with her thought process. I think it would be a great hire. Of course, you're not going to give her president of hockey operations. No offense, Cheryl, but I think she would understand that you'd want someone who's maybe a little more familiar with the Senators from years past. Daniel Alfredson, maybe. I mean, he said at the golf tournament a couple years ago, if he would come back to work for a front office, it would be Ottawa. And guess what? It's been 2 weeks since that statement, and now we're getting the little breadcrumbs coming out throughout saying that, they want to add. Well, they've got a pretty knowledgeable hockey mind just down the street.
But, I mean, he's made it known that he's interested in coaching as well. Maybe he goes the Martin St. Louis route, going from coaching his kids all the way to the NHL. So I don't know if that's going to be a fit anymore. And Alfie did have a brief stint with Ottawa. Didn't go the way anyone expected. But, hey, it's a time for a new chapter. That's definitely something that could be on the table. And after what happened with Pierre Maguire in Ottawa, the Senators need to bounce back from that. I mean, it seemed like something that could work. Obviously, the role was not defined. Pierre Maguire didn't really do what fans and what we were told he was going to do. The moves that he had his fingers on, a little bit of everything, but not much of anything. That's what it kind of seems like, no? And the moves that he did have his fingers on, the Del Zotto, the Hamonic deals and signings, still Still not a great look. So obviously things need to move forward. I think Pierre Dorion wanted his own space without Pierre Maguire kind of lurking over his shadow. And Pierre Dorion wants to hire his own people. We know now that Maguire was mainly a Melnick hire just to kind of have someone extra there with Dorion. But it's classic organization and businesses. Things trickle down from the top. If you don't have the top set properly, then that's going to find its way down through the on-ice product. And I mean, Brady Tkachuk and Thomas Chabot, they mentioned it. Here are some things at the end of the year that we need so we can feel like we can be successful. And if the guys at the top aren't able to provide those things, it's not going to happen for them. And that can't happen for the Sens culture now that they're in a period where it's like, okay, we had our time rebuilding. We had our time with low expectations. They're supposed to be in year 2 of years of unparalleled success. Last year, by my definition, was not a year of unparalleled success. So they got to get going on that.
November was unparalleled failure. What was it? 1 win in 13 games?
1 win in an entire month.
And then after we were like, hey, we should cover this team after games too.
Yeah, let's get more coverage on this team. But hey, they did turn things around at that point.
They certainly did. And just like they did at the end of the 2020 season, they finished off on the right foot going into the summer. Now, is there any carryover? No, we learned that the hard way last season. The first 20 games is going to be crucial, but you're right. It's time this offseason. But I'm cautiously optimistic. Everything that I've heard about Anna and Olivia Melnick, it seems like they've got their foot on the pulse of what needs to happen here going forward. Of course, there's layers to that. Pierre Dorion has to make the right moves, and DJ Smith has to deploy the right players on the ice. But all that is coming up after contracts get sorted out. We know the Senators have 4 RFAs of note. A couple have been told they aren't going to be qualified, including Victor Mete. But with Josh Norris, we've covered that in depth. You can go find, we went over it with Ian Mendez. We've gone over comparables. Josh Norris, I think we've pretty well figured out what needs to happen. A long-term deal, what the number's going to be. But Mathieu Joseph, to me, is fascinating. So after a quick word, Pilsy, from your friends, you probably just finished your Athletic Greens this morning. Then we'll get into some comparables for Mathieu Joseph before we turn to our draft rankings that are into the teens, Pilsy. We're into the teens already.
Yep, it's great to be that far down in the draft, and something that's important, getting your prospect profile, watching in every day, or listening for the listeners. Something just as important as that for a daily routine is getting your AG1 from Athletic Greens in every day, guys. That's how I start my days anyways. It's simple. I don't have the time to have all my vitamins lined up and to make sure I'm getting everything I need in the morning before I start recording. So the easiest way for me to get what I need health-wise is 1 scoop of AG1 in my cup of water before breakfast. It's so simple. You're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source, superfoods, probiotics, and more so you can start your day off right, guys. It's lifestyle friendly. Whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, it's good for you. Contains less than a gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, or artificial anything, while still tasting good. That's why I love it. And it's a great part of your routine that will cost more than your daily coffee habit. It's less than $3 a day, and you're investing in your health. So make sure you're investing in an all-in-one nutritional insurance. Right now, it's your time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. Just 1 scoop in your cup of water every day. That's it. It's simple. To make it even more simple, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, it's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance from Athletic Greens.
All right, Pilsy. So we announced on Twitter yesterday at Send Central. You can follow the show there. Also on TikTok. Don't know how active we'll be there, but my dog created an account. I got to see what he's up to. So you can go follow us there at Send Central, as well on Instagram, LockedOn.Senators. Please subscribe to Locked On Senators on YouTube channel, and you will be eligible if we hit a lofty goal of 2,500 subscribers by Canada Day. We're going to buy, out of our own pocket, one subscriber a brand new Ottawa Senators jersey.
Ooh.
They're so beautiful. And we wanted to mix things up a little bit because I know Pilsy and I are going to make the pilgrimage to the Ralph next year.
Yes.
And I know Pilsy's going to get himself a Jake Sanderson, North Dakota jersey. So we thought it would be fun to let another subscriber pick a prospect jersey. Like, if we can get our hands on it, if you want like a Thomas Chabot St. John Sea Dog jersey, like how sick would that be to rock it there? If you want the Barber Poles, the 67s with Tyler Boucher on the back, we're going to make that happen for you. If you want a Parker Kelly, we saw our boy Ben from Saskatchewan.
Yep.
He put out the Parker Kelly Prince Albert Raiders. If you want to get the mayor of Prince Albert too, Carson Latimer, anyone who you want a prospect jersey. I don't think we can get our hands on a Tim Stützle a jersey from his time in Mannheim. But that's the type of thing we want to do. I think it'd be fun, it'd be unique, a little bit different. So help us get to that push to 2,500 subscribers by Canada Day, and we're going to make that happen for you, the listener. And hey, that Sens jersey, if you want to make it Mathieu Joseph, you certainly can. Which brings us to our next point. What type of deal are you thinking for Mathieu Joseph? The poor guy, man. He's probably seeing this pop up if he name searches. He's like, man, my former team just made it to Stanley Cup Finals for a third straight year, and here I am talking about my next contract. He is arbitration eligible. He was making under $800,000 last year, Pilsy. Clearly, he's due for a raise, but the question is, how much? This is a player who is 2 years away from unrestricted free agency.
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting contract because I would assume Mathieu Joseph and his agent were comfortable taking a hometown discount to play in Tampa. And both of those years that he took those discounts, oh yeah, they won the Stanley Cup. So
I have my 2 Stanley Cup rings shoved in my ear.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't play in the first one, but he did get a handful of games playing in the second one. Yep. Yeah, still gets a ring. Yep.
And that had to be the toughest playoff to be a black ace for in the bubble.
Oh my God. That's the thing. When everyone says it's a Mickey Mouse ring, I think that's so far from the truth. I think that 2020 Cup was the hardest one to win because they had to battle adversity like never before for Stanley Cup playoffs. So definitely I put a lot of emphasis on that. And look, you mentioned it. Has one more year of restricted free agency. So that's the 1 year route. Yep. 2 years takes him to UFA, and beyond 2 years, you're eating up UFA years. So I think really the conversations need to go, all right, how is this contract going to look if it's a 1 year, whether it's settled right before arbitration, which the Sens have done before, settled by arbitration, or 2 years taking him to UFA, or you're looking at a longer term contract. I wouldn't expect either party would want to go more than 4 years. I would say probably 3 years makes the most sense if they're going to do that. So those are the 3 types of avenues we need to look at here when discussing Mathieu Joseph's contract possibilities.
Well, he was traded along with a 4th round pick for Nick Paul, who's 27 years old, 2 years older, and again, going into unrestricted free agency for the first time in his career. And we all know the numbers were leaked. Although they don't negotiate through the media, the numbers were leaked. 4 years, $2.6 million per year was the offer for Nick Paul.
Yep.
Do you think that contract identically could be on the table right now for Mathieu Joseph?
I would say you're probably close in the range. I think it makes sense. Maybe that's a starting point. Like I said, I don't think 4 years either party is really going to want to do. Especially if I'm Mathieu Joseph, I don't want to do a 4-year deal. Just as I'm on the cusp of being a top 6 forward. I had a great, small sample size, but I had a great sample size with my new team. So I would think he's probably wanting to do a shorter term deal so that he can re-up again quicker.
Now, that's where the opportunity cost comes in too, right? Because he could sign a 1-year deal, but then all of a sudden, if Ottawa goes out and let's say a perfect offseason happens, they get 2 top 6 forwards, which I doubt it. But again, Drew's kind of the wild card in all this. And all of a sudden, he's back in a bottom 6 role.
Yep.
He's not going to be making that jump point-wise, which say what you want about other facets of the game, but that's where it comes down to. For contract negotiations, a big part of it is, okay, what was your production? And yeah, his production was great in Ottawa, 12 points in 11 games. Now, if I was a cynic of his, which I'm not, I do think that he has an extra gear offensively that he's going to continue bringing. 7 of his 12 points, Pillsy, came against the Detroit Red Wings in those 2 games.
Yeah, and he did have a 4-game point streak where he had 10 points, and the Red Wings games were a part of that, obviously. So, and that's fair. I mean, you got to look at those things. They're going to look at those things if they go to arbitration, of course. I think, and Ross, we were talking about this before we went on air here. I think a really good contract comparable is Denis Gurianov. He just signed a new deal. He's 25 years old as well. He just signed a 1-year deal for 2.9. And he's coming off a 2-year deal of 2.55. So I think somewhere in that range makes a lot of sense because they're similar players. He just had 3 straight years of, he had 29 points, 30 points, and 31 points. So he's getting a point extra every year. So good on Gurianov. That's improvement. You love to see it. But I think that's around the range that you're looking for Joseph. So, but then you got to consider Gurianov's last contract was at 2.5. So that's your base.
Right.
Joseph's last contract was league minimum, right around 800,000. So that's his base. But I think him and his agent could definitely get some leverage and get a bump there. I would think if they do like an arbitration 1-year type thing, it's in the low 2s, maybe 2.1, 2.2 for 1 year. And then if you're looking at 2 years, I've got it closer to 2.5. And if you're looking at 3 years, I've got it somewhere between 2.5 and 3 mil.
Yeah, I think those are all pretty reasonable. Now, a couple weird ones maybe you could say, but that would make a little bit of sense. Like Alexander Barabanov just signed a 2-year extension with the San Jose Sharks at 2.5 per year. Now he doesn't have the consistency of being like, okay, 28 points, 28 points, 28 points, but he popped off for 39 last year and still only managed to get that number. And he was a pending UFA. Now, if we're going the RFA route, the closest contract comparable that I could find now, Gurianov's great, but that's only a 1-year contract, right? I think both sides would benefit at least 2 years because then if you're Joseph, you're not having to deal with potential arbitration all over again. You're actually going right to UFA. I think 3 years is probably the sweet spot for both parties because that way the Sens can feel like, okay, a part of the reason we wanted this trade to go through is the controllable asset.
Yes.
Well, you lose that control if you just walk them right to unrestricted free agency, and you don't want to have to go through the negotiation process again. I do think 3 years makes the most sense. And would you look at that? Another player with similar production just signed a 3-year contract this past year, and it's kicking in starting in 2022-23. And that player is Jordan Greenway from the Minnesota Wild. Now, his contract is 3 years, $3 million per. Okay, so that's on the high end. And Greenway, of course, we know is a physical beast. Like he's a kind of guy, he's going to run guys over a little more than Joseph does. But Joseph probably brings an extra element with his penalty killing ability. So I think that that's a pretty reasonable comparison. They're both at 25 years old right now. Greenway had his first taste of NHL action a little earlier. He's already at 272 games played, whereas Joseph is at 230 games played. But 27 points in 62 games was Greenway this past season, whereas Joseph hit 30 in a similar amount of games, 69 games for Joseph. So the production itself is super similar in this case. And I don't know if I'd love that. I think that might be a tiny bit high, but it's also structured $2.5 million in year 1, $3.5 million in year 2, and then $3 million in year 3 with an 8-team no trade clause. If this was the announced contract, what would be your initial reaction to that?
It's a little high for me as well. And Ross, another point of reference for the Greenway contract, I'm on his cap friendly right now, is his last contract, very similar to Gurianov, was a 2-year deal at 2.1 average. So again, you're starting at a higher floor for these guys when you're starting negotiations. Now, I'm sure Joseph and his agent will say, well, yeah, we took a hometown discount playing in Tampa.
But
Great.
did he really? Like he was coming off when he signed that contract, his 2-year deal. So he was coming off 37 games, 4 goals, 3 assists. Like that was his least productive year in the NHL. So I just don't think he had much bargaining power.
Yeah, but you're also looking, he's lower in the lineup. You're going to get good experience playing in Tampa. And I mean, to go from your entry-level contract to basically signing a 2-year deal for the same amount of money, AAV, I don't think that happens very often. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. But yeah, I think that is going to be one thing that they look at here. So I think for Gurianov and Greenway, you're looking on the lower side of things just because, yeah, he hasn't had as much time playing in a top or middle six role like those guys would have with their respective teams. But now he's kind of penciled in as a top six forward. So that kind of bumps that up a little. So I think it's going to be interesting. I would say a good deal all around would be 3 years at 2.5.
Okay, 3 years at 2.5. So just a shade under what the Sens got Anton Forsberg at, as he signed for 3 years at 2.75.
Yeah, which is crazy for a number one goalie, essentially.
Yeah,
goalie.
That value is insane. Now, Dom Lucian from The Athletic, he puts out these player cards. No, they're not gospel, just like another random player card provider with no information but taken from others. That to say, the market value they have for Mathieu Joseph's contract, Pillsy, here is 4.4 based on an extremely high defensive rating is kind of where they have him pegged. And I think Sens fans saw a bit of that, but mostly were impressed with the hat trick against Detroit. You know, that 4-game point streak we mentioned where he had 10 of his 12 points. I'm a bit wary of that when it comes to his offensive production, especially when he spent such a big chunk of his time in Ottawa playing with Brady Tkachuk and Josh Norris, while Drake Batherson was still working his way back into the lineup. But defensively, at the very least, I think he can be a third-line guy who kills penalties. So to get that at 2.5, I think is pretty reasonable at his age. But let us know in the comments what you think. What kind of contract do you think Mathieu Joseph can get? And we'll bet on that at betonline.net, the one spot to have all of your gambling needs. It's betonline.net. So when we're talking about hockey, yeah, that's great. Stanley Cup Finals about to go. They got lots of props for that. But you can also bet on the NBA Finals and anything else going on in the sporting world. BetOnline.net has you covered. More props, odds, and lines, player performance props. Also, this coaching carousel has to stop sometime, right? Somebody's got to hire someone. So go to BetOnline.net and check out all the handicapped of who could coach where. Head to the website today or your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. It's BetOnline.net, where the game starts. All right, Pillsy. So it will be interesting to see what kind of contract Mathieu Joseph gets. Stay tuned. On Wednesday, we're going to do Alex Formenton. And on Friday, we're going to do Eric Brandstrom. So we're going to spread out throughout the week. We're going to do RFA talk for, well, you just heard Joseph. We're going to do Formenton and Brandstrom. So you can let us know your thoughts on those players coming up as well. But for now, Pillsy, back to our NHL draft rankings. All right, coming in at number 20 on our Locked On Senators draft rankings, we're going back to the U.S. National Team Development Program. How many of these players are going to go in the top 2 rounds? We've got right wing sniper Jimmy Snuggerud.
Jimmy Snuggerud, yet another great name to add on to our list here. Yeah, and this is Ross. This is another Minnesota guy who I'm blanking on it. Who was the other guy from Chaska, Minnesota? He played high school there as well. Okay, yes. I was like, I know we had another Minnesota guy, and wouldn't you know it, Ross? Jimmy Snuggerud is committed to the University of Minnesota. Guys can't leave there. They don't want to. I'm surprised he didn't play more for his high school team because they just become local legends and they don't want to leave. And for good reason. I mean, his dad went to...
his grandpa went to Minnesota too.
Yeah, it's a family thing. So I don't think there was any humming and hawing about where he was going to go. And his dad played 4 years in the NHL, and it was actually the captain of the University of Minnesota. So some family pedigree in the area as well.
He is a sniper. Like, for just watching his plays, offensive weapon. He's ranked as high as 9th on Craig Button's list. He's 19th for Bob McKenzie, and the rest have him in the 20s. Tony Ferrari left him off his top 32. Elite Prospects has him at 24. Scott Wheeler and Chris Peters at 26, and Corey Prodman at 27. So that 9 is doing a lot of work for Craig Button to push Snuggerud up into the range. We have him here at 20th overall. This past year with the under-18 team at the program, 59 games, 24 goals, 39 assists for 63 points. Pillsy, I was watching game tape with Tony, and Ferrari was asking him, like, what is it about your game and how are you? He's like, the perfect complementary player is kind of what I'm getting at. Like, I think he needs guys on his line who can figure out how to control pace a little bit. But once he gets into a spot, he's comfortable. Like, he started last year, and the U.S. program shifts around their lines a lot. But he started last year with Frankie Nazar, who we know is going to be a top 10 pick or top 15. He's got a couple questions, but super talented player. He was up on a line with him. Then he gets moved down to the line with Cutter Gauthier and Cole Spicer, who is going to go later in this draft. And that's more of a power line. And he was able to kind of fit in to both lines. I see him as a bit of a chameleon. He said, like, put me on the fourth line, the first line. I'll figure out a way to make my game effective based on the players I'm playing with, based on who I'm playing against. I just think this guy is going to make a contending team happy. I think he's probably going to go in the range we have him, if not maybe a touch later. But he's the kind of guy, you put him with the right players, he's going to snap offensively.
Yeah, and I think what came to mind, Ross, when you said a complimentary player is, remember when we were talking about Philip Mechard, and we were saying this guy brings the puck into the zone, but he can't finish anything. Snuggerud would be the perfect guy to play with Mechard. Like, he needs someone to get the puck into the zone for him, set it up, get himself into open space, and then he's able to finish off this play. And that's what it just seemed like. Like, he's got that big, heavy shot. At the U18s, he had 7 points in 6 games. And what he's really done, too, is he's added to that shot. So he's not just a big shot. He's improved on his skating a lot, too. McKean's Hockey was mentioning how he really changed from his U17 season, where he was kind of doing quick, choppy strides, which wasn't really working for him. He's now using longer, more powerful strides, and that allows him to start carrying the puck into the zone on his own. But also, he can chip and chase with the best of them. Like, he can chip it off the boards and go around the player wide and beat him to that puck in the corner to start playing the O-zone by himself. So I think with Snuggerud, he's definitely finding ways to become more useful rather than just a big shot.
So Chris Peters mentioning kind of on that note as well, he's a down low force with work ethic that doesn't relent. He always does the dirty work on his line. He's always in there digging for pucks, and he's improved in his skating is just going to help him more in transition, because that's probably why some of these scouts are a little lower on him. Elite shot, but what I wonder is his shot selection. I saw out of his, 34 goals, I said, a lot of them are like wristers from pretty far out. So, like, are those going to beat NHL goalies, or is he going to have to mix in some extra tricks into his bag so that he can get to the next level? Now, Bob Motzko, the head coach with Minnesota, kind of the opposite of Minnesota Duluth, where Duluth is super defensive, and Minnesota allows so much creativity in their game. So I think this is the perfect landing spot for him to go next year and really build on an already solid base. Now, Scott Wheeler mentioned that he puts out a poll to all the USNTDP kids. Who's your most underrated teammate? And Snuggerud came up. The other guy who came up, funny enough, is Marek Hayduk, Milan Hayduk's son. But Snuggerud right there as well, as a guy who he just goes. He's versatile. Again, like I mentioned, you can play on any line, and he's going to find a way to make an impact. So I love him as a player. I think he's going to make a team really happy. His down low play is perfect. Dangerous one-timer as well. Catch and shoot. But the skating, again, it's better. But Pilsy, that's the one area where to be an NHLer, he's going to need probably 2-3 years just to keep working on that skating.
Yeah, I would agree. And anytime you've got a prospect that needs some time to develop and they're committed to a great program like University of Minnesota, you're not too worried about it. If anything, you're stoked about that. You're like, okay, we can stash him away at a great development spot and get some free development from a great program. And somewhere where he's going to be happy and he's going to want to flourish, and he's got a family name to make proud in that area. So he's going to be doing everything he can to do well there. And the thing too, Ross, is a lot of scouts are saying that same thing, that he's so underrated, but he's also pretty good defensively too. Now, I didn't find too many specifics, but all scouts kind of said, hey, he's got this big shot, but he's not just 100% offense and just cheating at the blue line, waiting to get a shot off. He's working hard defensively as well. So that's a big part of why I think he's going to get more chances to be in big moments here. And I like him a lot. Like, the fact that every team needs at least one finisher, if not two, because you want your second power play unit to have a finisher on it as well. So I think Snuggerud could find himself maybe not quite on a top power play unit, Ross, but I think we could see him being the finisher on a second unit.
Well, Corey Prodman said he's the type of player that you can build a power play unit around, which is a huge compliment. And then his player comparable for him is Tanner Pearson, which, again, maybe not the best skater, but great shot, has produced offensively. 100%. I see the same type of projection with Snuggerud. I think that he can be a guy that contributes, 20, 25 goals, maybe 40% of them on the power play, but you need players like that. And to pull up his elite prospects page, if you're watching on YouTube, he is a later birthday in this draft, June 1st. So he just turned 18 at the start of June. He is 6'2", 185 pounds. So he's got a big frame here that he can continue to roll out. And I see him, as that Tanner Pearson type. He'd probably need to play at like 200 pounds, be a little bit more physical. And I think he's got it in him here. You see the pedigree there, the father, brother, sister, uncle, cousin, grandfather, whole family tree is playing hockey. When you're from Minnesota, you kind of expect that. Has played great the last 2 years. You like how he was kind of even in his production, both in goals and assists in his first year with the program. And then here in the second year, just exploded his point total to over a point per game. Got a great plus minus on there as well. And now he'll take his talents to the University of Minnesota after a solid World Under-18 where he had 7 points in 6 games.
Yeah, I think he's really set himself up for success here. He's worked hard to improve from that U17 season, like you mentioned, and this might be one of the greatest years ever for the U.S. program. I mean, it seems like every other prospect, Ross, we're talking about since we got to like rank 40 is a U.S. guy.
Yeah, I think we say maybe the top 5 in terms of amount.
Yes.
Because they don't have like that Jack Hughes or Trevor Zegras or Brady Tkachuk, although he was drafted out of Boston University the year after. But in terms of the sheer number, like I'm pretty sure we talked about 5 of their 6 defenders.
Yeah, and then we've covered pretty much, or we're going to cover their top 2 lines. Yeah, so
easily.
Definitely a great year for the U.S. program. Now, Ross, I
stars.
Yeah, some big time. I think there's some potential here. Like I said, I think he's going to be the finisher on a second power play unit. He's got a decent two-way game. I think he's probably going to go somewhere between 18 and 25 pick-wise, Ross. That's kind of where I have him slated. So that's an awkward spot for the Sens to snatch him, whether they trade up or down. I don't think it's really going to happen. So for that point, I gave him 3 stars for me, 3 Sens stars. I like the shot, like the potential, but I don't see a scenario where the Sens go after him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, we know they love the program.
Yeah.
So that could always, and they are looking for a finisher. I'm going 3.5 stars for Snuggerud. I think that he would be a complimentary piece as kind of I started out this whole rant. And if he's the selection, I'll talk myself into him being 3-4 years down the road, a guy who can throw on Timmy's wing. And maybe when Drew retires,
that works out nicely.
Just throw him in there. He'll be the buffer. But in all seriousness, I almost said sneeriousness because we got Snuggerud on the mind. But I think that he's going to be he's definitely going to be an NHLer in my mind. Even if the skating is so-so, he's just, when you have a weapon like he does in his shot and work ethic down low, he's a guy who's going to play in the NHL. So I've got Jimmy Snuggerud at 3.5 stars. All right, coming in at number 19 on our Locked On Senators draft rankings. We're into the teens officially, and we are going to the lone Austrian on our list. He's been playing in the SHL. As we've talked, a lot of these kids have been playing a few games at the SHL level, but not number 19 from Rogla. We've got Marco Kasper.
Marco Kasper, the Austrian. Ross, only 3 other Austrians have been drafted in the first round. Do you know those 3? Probably.
Thomas Vanek. Yep. I'm already running out. Who else?
Marco Rossi. Most recently.
I should have had that.
I thought you were going to have that one. And then this one you probably wouldn't get, but don't forget Michael Grabner.
Oh, okay.
Grabner, great player in his prime. I really liked him. And speaking of Austrian players, Marco Kasper's dad, Peter Kasper, played a long career in Austria. And a lot of Marco's time, like you mentioned, in Sweden, was spent in the SHL, which is really rare for a young foreign prospect to get that much of a look in the SHL rather than the J20 league. And he's made the most of it there. And what I really like about Kasper, Ross, is this guy is motivated off the ice as well. Wheeler talked about how when he was preparing to come to Sweden, he spent all summer learning how to speak Swedish. Now, I'm not sure the language transition from speaking German in Austria to going to speak Sweden in Sweden. I'm not Swedish in Sweden. I'm not sure how easy that is, but to learn an entire language in a summer is pretty damn impressive. Because look, this is a guy, he was like, for my hockey career to flourish, I need to be playing well in Sweden. I need to learn the language. I need to figure my stuff out. And that's exactly what he did. And in the SHL, 46 games, he had 7 goals, 4 assists, good for 11 points.
Now, we have him listed as a centerman here. So does US Central, or so does the NHL Central Scouting. But it is worth noting, and Wheeler points out in his draft rankings, that he played exclusively on the wing this season, which you'd expect playing against men. But the fact he played 46 games in the top league in Sweden is super impressive. He's 6'1", 187 pounds, and he's ranked on Corey Pronman's list as high as 9th. And he's ranked on Tony Ferrari's list as low as 30th. He's 29th for Bob McKenzie, 24th for Scott Wheeler, 17th for Bob McKenzie and Elite Prospects, and 12th on Chris Peters' list. To show you he does have some offense, we made note that playing in the J20 League, he had 13 points in 12 games with Rogla's J20 squad. He was the captain of Team Austria at the ever so short World Juniors, which will resume in August. He'll already have an NHL affiliate by then, though, Pillsy. What will that team expect from Marco Kasper down the road?
Well, he plays a good physical game, and I would say of all the prospects we've covered so far, he's going to be one of the most pro-ready guys. He's already playing solid minutes in pro leagues. And Ross, not only that, but he also got a decent look at the World Championship. He had 7 games, and you're going up against legit NHL talent. You're going up against some of the best in the world in that
and playing with not
exactly.
much.
So he had 2 points in 7 games, not too bad.
Was Balsers there, your boy?
He must have been. Yeah, he must have been. But Balsers, he plays for Latvia, not Austria.
Oh, damn.
Close.
There you go.
But
sick job.
Yeah, and Marco Kasper, just to get back on track with him, what I noticed from watching some of his highlights is he's an aggressive forechecker. Like, he is chasing down opponents. He is hounding down these guys. And the reason he's able to play at a pro level so soon, Ross, is because he's got a good frame, 6'1", 183 pounds, and he uses his size to protect the puck when he's carrying it. And he's so physical that he makes his opponents react quick and make hasty decisions. Like, they see him on the ice, they see him coming at them with speed, and they're like, I got to get rid of this before I get crushed. And what happens is when you constantly have guys thinking like that, they're not going to be making smart, good decisions, and you're going to be turning that puck over, or you're going to be allowing your teammates to turn that puck over more often than not. And I think that's Marco Kasper's biggest attribute, is his ability to put teams on their heels, keep them on their toes, and keep them honest.
Extremely strong forechecker, competes ridiculously hard, high motor, hits everything, ball of hate. Those are the adjectives. Those are the adjectives that I would use to describe him. He's going to be a type of centerman at the NHL level, or winger if that's where he ends up. I think that's a very strong possibility for Marco Kasper, but he's just going to be such a pain in the ass to play against. And we know the Sens love that. Now, would they love it enough to take him 7th? I hope not. But even still, like in the middle of to late end of the first round, this is the type of player where I think it's a very high floor, low ceiling type guy, but a guy who I could see on a penalty kill in the NHL level. He skates well. He's got decent hands in tight right in front of the net. But that to say, Elite Prospects was questioning his hockey sense as the type of thing, like, can he be a top 6 forward at the NHL level? Maybe not.
Yeah, and that's fair. I don't really have him pegged as a top 6 guy, but that doesn't... I want to be careful when saying that, because I'm not trying to undervalue him. I think he still is going to have a lot of value as a bottom 6 guy, just because I find, Ross, he's going to be one of those guys where I don't know, 5-6 years down the road when he's playing on a team that's in the playoffs, and if they go on a run, you look back and you're like, man, Kasper as a third line winger, like he was a part of that depth that allowed this team to go far because he's killing penalties in a 7-game series where you're playing the same team over and over, and there's that ball of hate like you talked about. That's a guy I want on my bottom 6, and I'm putting a lot of value on that guy. And although I'm quite sure he's never going to play on a top power play unit, I think he'd be the perfect guy on a second power play unit to stand in front of the net and just cause havoc. Like, just be a shit disturber out there and not let the other team clear that puck out of the zone quickly, because anytime it's a loose puck and you've got the man advantage, he's going to be going hard at that guy to turn it back over and keep it in the zone. So I like Kasper's game a lot, and I really think it translates to a pro level in a bottom 6 role.
100%. He also played 13 playoff games this year in the SHL. Great experience. He had 3 goals and 3 assists. So he more than halved his production in 46 games in 13 playoff games. So you wonder if that means that when the games get more intense, it just fits his role even better, or was he just getting more comfortable? This is a guy who only turned 18 on April 8th. And all of a sudden, now he's starting to, get into his rhythm, feel good about his game. And next thing you know, the offense starts popping. Now, in his last 10, he only had 1 goal, 2 assists, but I believe some of that was at the World Championships. Of course, it was 7 games there, only the 2 assists, but such a projectable player, Pilsy. Such a guy where you could just see him on a third line, killing some penalties, maybe standing in front of the net on the power play, and then all of a sudden he'll come up with a big goal when you least expect it. Now, I'm curious, as I'm pulling up right now, what do you think for a player comparable? Where do you think that Corey Pronman went? Because we're using his player comparable so that Pilsy doesn't have to deal with your Stepan thoughts again. But how's this for one? Sam Bennett as a type of player. Now, we know that Corey Pronman is higher on him than anybody else, having him 9th on his rankings. But I see the prototype, like a little bit undersized, like 6 foot, 6'1". But that to say, he is compete level off the charts.
I think, Ross, you're probably, if you're looking at Kasper, just me personally, you're probably getting the Calgary Flames Sam Bennett and not the Florida Panthers Sam Bennett. You know what I mean? And hey, again, I don't want to knock that, because I'm looking at Sam Bennett's hockey DB, and for 1, 2, 3, 4 straight years, he had over 25 points. He's double digits in goals and assists. So for a bottom 6 guy playing that defense-minded type hockey, that's solid production. And it's interesting to note, too, that Wheeler tweeted out that Kasper spoke with 30 teams at the Combine, Dallas and Carolina being the only 2 he did not speak with. So I think everybody's got his range all over the place, and everybody is at least interested in knowing a little bit more about Marco Kasper.
From Innsbruck, Austria, the April 8th birthday's a left shot, so I would project him as a left winger in the future. And he got a championship here with the Champions Hockey League, where it's similar to the Champions League in soccer, where it's different teams from different leagues across Europe. They come together, so gets a little bit of a taste of a championship. Nothing wrong with that. Put up comedy numbers growing up in Austria, 63 points in 22 games. How about this? 9 goals in 30 games. Okay, cool. Oh, wait, 63 assists in 30 games? Just setting up his teammates for success there. Already got his first taste of pro hockey, Pilsy, when he was 14 to 15, in that range, playing in the top league in Austria. And then they were like, you know what? You got 2 points in 3 games playing in the top league. Okay, maybe you should go take your talents to Sweden and play against tougher competition. Goes there, plays under the U18s, 8 points in 7 games. Okay, maybe we'll even give you a taste as a double underager. Pilsy played 16 if you include playoff games in the SHL as a 16 turning 17-year-old. This guy, you mentioned it, pro ready, and I think that's why I have him up at 3.5 stars as well, because you know what? Maybe the offense won't come at the NHL. I don't see him as a 50-point guy at the NHL level, but as a complimentary piece. Now, the question is, how much value does that have in this draft? Are you taking a guy you expect to be a bottom 6 guy in the first round? That's what team's going to have to decide. Or is there an extra layer of offense that's untapped? But the maturity's there, and I think he'll be an NHLer before some guys that we're doing coming up on our rank.
And I want to touch on that maturity too, because one thing that a lot of scouts highlighted about Kasper is his discipline. Like, for a young kid playing in pro leagues to be going out there and banging bodies every shift, you'd think he'd pick up a couple crappy penalties where he just gets off the rails a little.
Yeah.
He doesn't do that. So that's why a coach can trust him. And I really think Marco Kasper, he's not going to go to a rebuilding team. He's not going to go to a team trying to bump up their prospect pipeline. He's going to go to a team that's like, hey, we're on the cusp of playoffs here. We're up against the cap.
Right.
This is a guy we can get in our bottom 6 for 3 years at an entry-level contract, and he's going to help us out in the playoffs. I see him going to a team that's looking to contend and looking to bring him up sooner rather than later, and there's a lot of value in that. I've got him at 3.5 stars as well, Ross. I don't know how the Sens get him, but I think if they were looking to get a guy like him, a guy with good work ethic, plays a disciplined physical game, and can be pro ready pretty quickly here, there's a lot of value to that.
We'll get back to our draft rankings tomorrow. We're going into, let me get a little teaser up here. Who do we have tomorrow without spoiling it too much? Because now we've got we're just waiting on Bob McKenzie and Craig Button really to put out their final rankings. Otherwise, they're all pretty well set. Oh yeah, we've got the Winnipeg Ice.
Oh.
One of 2 Winnipeg Ice coming up on tomorrow's ranking. We'll leave that till then. Let's do a quick Stanley Cup prediction. Obviously, the playoffs have been fantastic. I've got 12 out of 14 series predictions right.
Me too, Ross. I'm right there with you.
All right. Well, do we have a tiebreaker on our hands here? I don't know which way you're going, but I'm taking the Tampa Bay Lightning in 6 games.
I got Tampa in 7. I think Colorado will push them right to the brink. But, Ross, if you're a hockey fan, I think this is the greatest outcome you could want. I would say it's the number 1 powerhouse in the East going up against the number 1 powerhouse in the West. This is how things are supposed to work out.
Yeah, and we got the rest versus rust debate because it'll be, 10 days almost since Colorado finished their sweep of the Edmonton Oilers, and you've got the team that's just on the cusp, and they've been pushing and being pushed down in the second round 3 years in a row against the team that was swept in the first round and hasn't lost since 2020.
Honestly, yeah, it's crazy. And it's crazy that we're going from Stanley Cup final with the number 1 powerhouse in the West to the number 1 powerhouse in the East. Ross, last year, it was the number 1 powerhouse in the East versus the team that finished 32nd place.
Oh yeah,
and they were both Eastern teams. Like, what a change in Cup finals here. But I just, when you start going down the line, how do you bet against Tampa Bay? Vasilevsky, Hedman, Stamkos, and it's crazy they're doing this without Braden Point. Like, he's arguably their best player at times, and they're doing it without him. Kucherov is incredible. Like, yes, you could go guy for guy with the Colorado Avalanche, but I think where it boils down to is the goaltending. Is you're not going to beat Vasilevsky. These guys have been to the Stanley Cup Finals. This is now their 3rd straight year. They know how to get it done. I think they've got a great chance here. But Ross, at betonline.ag, the series prices for the Tampa Bay Lightning to win, plus 155. For the Colorado Avalanche, minus 175. So if you feel the same about the Lightning as we do, time to get a couple shekels on them for a good future bet here.
Absolutely. And make sure you're following our boys at Locked On Avalanche and Locked On Lightning. They'll take you through all the ups and downs and the emotion of being a fan at that. We'll be back tomorrow with more thoughts on the Ottawa Senators, more draft rankings, and then later in the week, we're going to continue our RFA projections with Eric Brandstrom and Alex Formanton. For today, though, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.